Are you a startup founder that is making it up as you go along in terms of a process to get to product market fit? If you're lacking an innovation risk management framework to get to product market fit, then you're likely to end up like most startups, and that's in the startup graveyard. An innovation risk management framework will make sure that you're managing all the risks that you need to manage in terms of building a business model that can actually make it to product market fit, and you're using your resources as efficiently as possible and managing all of the risks. And what we've done is lay out that framework. We call it the disruptive innovation journey. And this is built on the popular frameworks that you see from people like Steve Blank, that's outlined in his Startup Owner's Handbook, and from Bill Ollett in his book, Disciplined Entrepreneurship. They're all variations on a similar theme, and our process is no different. We have tested this with hundreds of founders and used that best practice and gone even deeper based on our experience to provide even better guidance and diagnostics to founders. So let's look at the process right now. So as we know, the journey to build a startup, you can loosely put into two key phases. The first phase is the search phase, where you're searching for a business that's worth scaling or searching for product market fit. Those two things are pretty interchangeable. Now, the reason that most startups fail is because they try and build a business model that's not worth scaling. And when you build a business model that's not worth scaling, you run into all sorts of pain. You can't grow the company fast enough. Customers are not that enthused by your product. It's more expensive to market. It's more expensive to sell. The profitability is not there. The growth's not there. That doesn't attract potential staff. It doesn't attract investors. And so you end up on this grey line. And in order to avoid that death sentence, you want to make sure that you continue to grow for learning before you grow for growth. And that's really what product market fit is. Now, we've broken up the search for product market fit into 4 key stages. The first stage we call pre-revenue market validation. This is a stage that most founders either don't do or don't do well enough to get the benefits they need out of it to really validate the risk of their business model. In this stage, we're starting off with a business model hypothesis. We understand exactly the market. We understand the problem hypothesis. We understand our solution hypothesis, and we're going to test all of that without having a product. Once you get through this phase, and if you can do this with validation from potential customers, then you can move into the next phase that we call initial pilot validation. This is all about doing things manually, assuming that you don't yet have a solution or a business model that's worth scaling, because that is a really good assumption. What are the chances that you're going to get the right business model and right product right out of the box that's going to take you to product market fit? Almost zero is the answer. And so this phase is really key to do things very scrappily, do things manually that don't scale so that you can do things fast, get value into the customer's hands, get customers to pay for that value, and start getting feedback on where the sticking points are between the version of the solution that you've got and the business model you've got, and a version that will take you to product market fit. Once you've got enough validation from customers in this initial pilot validation phase, and you believe that it is worth investing in scale and that you can still get to product market fit, then you can move into the product market fit validation stage. This is where you're now investing in scale and really looking to see if you can get to product market fit. Now, this is where most founders jump directly to, or they sort of very skim these first 2 phases and jump to this third phase. This is what we sort of think about in terms of Silicon Valley startups that get funded, build an amazing product, and then the market rushes to their door. Of course, this doesn't happen for the vast majority of founders, and we find the vast majority of founders that have a product in the market are languishing for traction, finding it extremely difficult to get customers and extremely difficult to get investment because they haven't proven they've got a business model that's worth investment. Good news is that there's a relatively easy fix to this, and that is go back and do these previous 2 stages and do them to a level of quality required to really create a better business model hypothesis, validate that hypothesis, validate it manually, and that's going to get you to a business model that's going to allow you to, in all likelihood, get to product market fit. So once you've got to that validation of product market fit, then and only then can you switch from growing for learning to growing for growth, and that's the 4th stage, and that's when you scale up. So let's look at this process in a little more detail. So the first stage in this process is something that we call company backbone. And this is all about making sure that you have the right systems and processes and people and roles in place in the company to do whatever it is that you need to do, depending on where you are on this journey. Because you don't want to overinvest in company systems when you don't need it. That's wasting capital. They're probably difficult to maintain if they're more sophisticated. But at the same token, you don't want to underinvest. You need to be as productive as you possibly can. So it's a case of always coming back to this stage 0 and making sure that you've got the right backbone in place to do what you need to do wherever you are on this journey. Now that you're ready to set off on the journey, the first stage we call investment validation. This is all about making sure that you've got a great business model hypothesis. You should be able to turn this into a pitch deck. You should be able to take this to your potential customers and say to them, hey, I noticed that people just like you seem to have this problem. There doesn't seem to be a great solution. It's causing you a huge amount of pain. And here's a much better solution approach that I think we can build that you're absolutely going to love. And with that, you've got a business model in mind in terms of what it's going to cost you to acquire a customer, how much revenue you're going to earn, how much profit you're going to get. And if that all stacks up, then you can move on to the next stage, which is segment validation. And this is where you really want to begin to talk to users and really ask them about their problems and the context within which they are tackling those problems. And you're looking for validation that there are enough customers that have the same problem. Those customers are easy to find. Those customers are willing to pay for a solution because there's no existing solution that solves their problem. And if you can get feedback from the market firsthand that this is really a problem that they really care about that's unsolved, and you have the ability to create a solution, then you can move on to the next stage, which is solution concept validation. This is where you're taking a concept of your solution to the customers and saying, hey, I've listened to the problems that you talked about that you had, and all the pain points associated with that. And here's how I think I would solve it. This is my solution concept. What do you think? And this gives you an opportunity to get feedback from the customers on your solution. So instead of turning up with a finished solution and asking them to buy it, you're inviting them to co-develop the solution with you. And you may need to go around a couple of times, a couple of iterations to get a solution that the customer says, wow, this is amazing. If this was a real product, I'd buy this product. It's unlikely that you're going to get it right on the first attempt. And of course, sometimes through this process, you're going to uncover things like the problems that the customer didn't talk about in stage B, or you're going to uncover things about the structure of the market that you didn't uncover in stage A. So at every step on this process, you may in fact need to go backwards. And that's what these arrows are here. Every time you take a step forward, you also need to go back potentially and look at what things have you learned that you can optimize previous steps to make sure you're managing your innovation risk and managing your resources as effectively as possible. Once you've got your solution concept validation in place, and at this point, you really should have the ability to sell a waiting list. Sell a waiting list of a product. And this is something that Elon Musk does a great job of, is generate demand and get people to vote with their wallets through a waiting list before he's ever built the product. So you want to then move into this second phase that we call initial pilot validation with your solution validation phase. This is a really important phase where you're now going to take money from a customer and deliver real value. But what you're not going to do is overinvest in your solution and assume that your solution is the right solution and that it's the solution that's going to get you to product market fit and scale up. In fact, you're going to assume that it's the wrong solution. Even though you've gone through step C and you've got validation from a customer, what a customer says they want and what they actually want are quite often different. And so you're going to learn that difference here during this stage D1. And again, you may have to do this over and over again. So you don't want to launch your product to too many users. Too many users means more users than you can take on board feedback. If you have a small team and you have, say, 100 customers, and they're all giving you feedback on how your product needs to evolve and how it needs to get better if they're going to continue to pay for it, and you can only really act on 5 customers' feedback and get another release out, then you've kind of wasted 95 customers that could be having a better version and giving you feedback on that fresh new version. And this is a perfect example of growing for learning, not growing for growth. So growing incrementally and slowly so that with every iteration, you're sort of maximizing your resources to learn from the market. So you may need to go through a few iterations of D1. Once you start to get your solution right, you can then start to look at value validation. And this is a step that is really important because it's the first time you can really validate the value that you're offering. Of course, in D1, you have to come up with a pricing model, but it's a bit of a guess. You have to start there. But now that you've actually got paying customers, and ideally you've got fans and advocates that love your solution, you can now understand the real value that you're providing to those customers. And now you can create a proper value-driven pricing model. Now, if you can get through these steps, and you can build a product that customers love, but maybe they don't love a huge amount because it doesn't have all that scalability built into it. It's not done for fit and finish, and it's not done for, may not have the right level of security in it, may not have the right level of speed into it. There may be a whole bunch of shortcomings in your product at this point, which is absolutely to be expected. But what you've done is be able to validate the core value and that it's worth putting all of those other things into your product, and that those other things are really going to get you to product market fit. And this is where you can now move into stage D3, which is engagement validation. This is where a lot of startups come unstuck, where they're not able to maintain customers through multiple transactions. And it's absolutely critical, if you're going to have fans and advocates, that people are coming back for multiple transactions. If it's a transaction-based business, you obviously want those multiple transactions. If it's a subscription-based business, you obviously want people to resubscribe. So it's really important you be able to validate that engagement before you really try and scale the business. The next stage is acquisition validation. This is where you really need to begin to scale your acquisition engines and get as many customers in the door as you possibly can. And at this stage, you may feel like, well, this is a little bit late. Shouldn't we be acquiring customers earlier? And the answer is absolutely yes. You need to start talking to customers right from stage A. But the volume of customers that you're talking to up until D4 is actually relatively low. So you can start with very, very light touch marketing and sales processes to get the volume of customers you need to get to D4. Once you get to D4, now you want to open the gates and get as many customers in as you possibly can. And obviously the idea with getting to product market fit is you want your existing customers, your existing paying customers, to become your number one marketing and sales channel, because that's what creates the viral growth effect, the hockey stick growth effect. But of course, to get to that point, you need to have enough critical mass of customers to get that flywheel going. So this is where you have to scale up your acquisition validation, and this is what D4 is all about. Once you've got D4 under control, then you can focus on your metrics. Once your metrics of your business model are really proving out that you're really getting towards product market fit, then and only then can you reach this last stage of scaling up. So as you can see, this is a very disciplined process that is going to ensure that you're using your resources to the maximum efficiency in order to give you the most number of iterations to get to product market fit without running out of capital, creating as much traction as you possibly can to both impress customers and show customers that you're making progress. And also, if you choose to raise capital and looking for investors, to impress investors that you're able to build that momentum and you're showing clear traction towards product market fit. So if you're a startup and you don't have an innovation management process like the Disruptive Innovation Journey, ask yourself the question, are you over-investing and not making the progress you need with the resources you have to get to product market fit?